to the Rugby Bits podcast, and we're doing something a little bit new today. We are trying to get onto the video space, and so that you guys can see our wonderful faces and reactions to all the rubbish that we speak to each other. I'm joined by Shaun today. We're going to just preview the big Rugby World Cup, Champions Cup matches that we have this weekend.
We can talk World Cup. We can talk World Cup. I'm happy. I'm not over. I'm not over it. I'm happy to talk World Cup. Like we could just change this whole thing. Forget the Champions Cup. Let's talk the World Cup again.
That'll be a 24-hour podcast probably. But we're going to do a quick preview of one of the big matches happening this weekend, the first round of the Champions Cup, which is the Bulls facing off Saracens. It's their first competitive match. It's also their first match at Loftus, and Saracens have brought out all the big guns to this trip to South Africa. So in the Saracens team, you have long-time England regulars like the Vunipola brothers, Jamie George, Mauro Toje, Owen Farrell, Elliot Daly, Martin Gonzalez is there representing Argentina. You've got Theo McFarland and Lucio Cinti on the bench. Shaun, there's a lot of players to get excited about from the Saracen side.
Yeah, massive. It's the big. This is what we expect out of the World Cup. See, now look what you've done. This is what we expect out of the Champions Cup. We expect the best of the best head to head. So I'm not taking a dig at the Stormers. It was like totally understand why they've named the side they've named, but the shit's gonna hit the fan in Europe when people start doing this more often. And that honestly it sits straight at EPCR's doorstep. They've changed the format and it allows for this. So the thing is it's great for us because we get to pick a few games on the weekend where in the past, like every game was blockbuster. So it's great though. It's awesome that this game is unfolding the way it does. Watching the Saracens guys in like at training with of their socials and all that, they're properly up for it. But I mean, they're back in the groove and they've got some big names. It's going to be a huge task for Jake White and the Bulls.
Yeah. And then on the Bulls side, they've picked 10 Springboks in their team as well. You've got, just a team littered with class and world-class operators in their positions. The likes of Ulrich Loh in the loose trio. You've got Marco van Staden at 6. You've got that killer back 3 with Leroux, Orense, and Caden Moody there. Johan Goossens is pulling the strings at 10. Marcel Coetzee is back for this game since he's not suspended. He's on the bench. I mean, not a bad option to bring off the bench as well. Shaun, out of all the players that we've mentioned and many others I haven't mentioned, what's the one matchup you're looking forward to for Saturday?
For me, it's the front row. I think Aka and Wilco Low have got a point to prove. Both of them have played in England, played against Saracens a fair whack. And Gerrit Sennekamp, obviously, he wants to increase his book chances. That's going to be big. I think probably the only sort of weakness in the Saracens front row right now is Alec Clary. Not in a way that he's a weakness, it's just the way that he's not as well recognized as everyone else. But Clary's going to be up against Sennekamp, so that almost cancels each other out in a way, But the front row for me is going to be big. The Bulls are going to need it. The Saracens are going to need it. So that for me is going to be the key point. Both front rows, should I say, have guys that are really pushing for either England recalls or back to the England squad and for the Springboks. So it's huge.
Yeah, I think the loose forward battle will also be ridiculous as well.
It's probably one of the best we've seen that matchup, I think, for a while.
Yeah, I mean, 5 internationals. Cameron Hanekom is probably going to be international sooner rather than later himself. Both bench options also internationals, and Marcel Coetzee and Theo McFarland. He's probably more reserving at lock than flank, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, if you just go individually, Van Staden is Andy Christie. He's playing quite well at the moment. He's obviously an option for Scotland. I think he's a really tidy open side flank. Juan Martin Gonzalez, you know how much of a big fan I am of him. Ulrich Loh, obviously, he's the next coming. And then Cameron Hanekom versus Billy Vunipola. As Cooks has mentioned when England played South Africa in the World Cup, Billy Vunipola doesn't tend to have good matches against South Africa. So let's see if this extends domestically as well.
Yeah, it's probably the greatest matchup. I'm really looking forward to the front row, but this loose trio, and I'm glad we're talking about it, is huge. I think the balance that Saracens have is really good, as do the Bulls. The balance is really good. The only thing that's going to be different and interesting to watch is Hanekom versus Vunipola. They're different eights. Hanekom likes, he's got wheels. He's a youngster. He can be tight. He can also be loose. Where Billy's more tight. So it's going to be very interesting to see what's going on. Juan Martín Gonzalez is in form. He made the move, and his first game was pretty good. But I remember against Argentina last year, he was sorry, for Argentina. I'm a bit nervous being on camera. Yeah. For Argentina, he didn't hit the straps as much as we thought he would. So he's coming into the groove now. It's going to be epic. And Gonzalez, Christian, Vunipola all actually have a point to prove. Not as much for Saracens not as much for Saracens as their international squad. So it's going to be massive, and this is the best stage to do it.
Yeah, and this game, I mean, they're in a pool with Lyon, Connacht, Bristol Bears, and Bordeaux. And you must just correct me if I'm wrong, Shaun, but for the pool stages, the top 4 go into the last 16. So, I mean, 4 out of 6 means you have a pretty good chance of coming in, basically, if you win at least 2 of your matches. So if you win your home matches, but obviously trying to get the first position, so you have a easier last 16 game is a consideration for the teams as well. So Saracens, being a team that's won many Champions Cups in their past, I'm sure they'll be trying. I mean, that's why they have the best team here. They'll be trying to get a win from this game. So I think we're in for a great game this weekend. I think both teams actually, perception is that both teams play like tight and tactical, but both teams, I think, have in the last year or so have tried to open up big game and play running rugby, and they've got great conditions to do that. Pretoria seems like there might be a thunderstorm at the time of the game. So yeah, good luck to English people that haven't experienced a high-fault thunderstorm. It's definitely an experience. But yeah, I think this might be the match of the weekend. 2 well-powered teams, both in form, both near the top of their respective leagues, and both looking to make their argument as to why they can join that, that Leinster, La Rochelle, and Toulouse top tier.
Yeah. Another space, and we've covered most of the pack, but the 2 lock pairings are going to be very interesting. I don't think Swanepoel and Ludwig are as settled as Itoje and Tizard. That could be the difference. Like, you can see it's pretty evenly matched in the front row and the back 3, but Saracens may have an edge with the locks, especially with Maro Itoje and the form he's in at the moment.
Yeah, also a match that'll be significant for Ivan van Zyl coming back to Pretoria.
He's cooking as well, eh?
He's been playing really good for the last season or so. Playing against his his sparring mate at the Bulls, Emrys Papier. They used to basically trade the 9 jersey like every week, so that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and both Papier and van Zyl are in form, so it's going to be quite interesting to watch. Definitely, I think Ivan van Zyl's got a little bit of a sort of point to prove as well. He wants to come back and he wants to dominate that space. So yeah, I mean, should be fun.
We have so many good scrum halves right now in South Africa that some of them playing in fly off, some of them playing in wing. I mean, yeah, everyone's proving their worth here. I mean, we haven't talked a lot of backline here, but I mean, those back 3s are ridiculous. I mean, the Bulls back 3 is effectively a Springbok one. But Shaun Maitland, Alex Lewington, Alex Good, probably one of the most underrated players in domestic rugby. Like, they're no slouches themselves. You've got Elliot Daly that can cause havoc. Nick Tompkins seems like a South African that was born in Wales, basically at 12. Yeah, there's a lot of quality to go around. And yeah, never mind the fly-half battle between Huisson and Farrell.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. And it's funny you say that about Tompkins. I have that same feeling. I often, he really does. He does feel South African. He does, like he's got that, I don't know what it is, but it's very interesting.
It's basically blonde Marius Lowe, I think.
Oh, okay, we can go with that. But I'm very interested to see how Saracens run this. I think Farrell is going to thoroughly enjoy. He's going to kick the Bulls a lot. I think the Bulls will kick a fair amount, but I think Farrell's going to be pushing for a little bit of more tactical kicking. The thing is Alex Good and Elliot Daly can slot into the 10 channel, both very good playmakers. They've got 3 playmakers on the field, and Nick Tompkins isn't shit because, he runs pretty hard, but he's good with the offload. He does, ironically, for a little guy, he draws quite a lot of attention on the defense because he's got a Quagga Smith vibe about him when he takes contact. He fights punches way above his weight category. So it's going to be interesting. That their backline probably close on the best backline they could field in the club at the moment. So they are here and they mean business.
Okay, and now let's get your predictions, Shaun. Earlier this week, I think you said Saracens would win. Are you swung the other way by the teams?
It's always, when you look at these games and these teams and you look at the match head-to-heads, once they announce their squads, it changes things up. Creole Tompkins is going to be fun. And Sid McCants is cooking at the moment. It's going to be quite interesting to see how he deals with Elliot Daly and how Elliot Daly deals with him. I still think Saracens are here to win. And I don't feel that any side ever travels to lose, but often you get a feel about teams where they're like, cool, we're not going to give. It's not a knockout game, so it doesn't really matter so early on. But I think Saracens, they're not going to send this side and walk away with like 2 losing bonus points. They're sending the side to win. So I'm still going to stick with them. I think Saracens edge the Bulls. There are a couple of guys that are not as experienced. I think Owen Farrell will lead his team to victory.
I'm going Bulls 39-35. I think it's going to be almost a basketball game.
Please can we have a high scoring game? The thing is so this is also something I'm thinking about. I didn't check. I don't know who Saracens are playing next week. But if it turns out to be a 39-35 game and it turns out to be a proper arm wrestle, like the Saracens side could get absolutely run off their feet and it'll hurt them next week. Like that is the other thing that could very well happen. I mean, there might be a thunderstorm, but it's also going to be like 100 degrees in Pretoria. So they're in for a rude awakening. But a massive high scoring game, close one with Saracens having to run a lot could hurt them next week, big time.
Yeah, look, the Bulls also need to win this game. I assume they're going to send a weakened team. They're playing Lyon next week in Lyon, so I assume they're going to send a weakened team because. Yeah, Jake White.
You can win that, hey?
Sorry?
Bulls can win that.
Yeah.
Bulls can beat Lyon. So it all depends on what happens this week as well, possibly,
But the game after that is the Stormers. And obviously Jake White has a massive axe to grind in Cape Town. So I can't see more. Yeah, I can't see most of the first teamers going up to France next week. So this almost has to be a win, or it might. It either pushes Jake to then pick his best team, and then you have to get 2-3 big weeks from then, or it might even. It's crazy to say this. Yeah, it's crazy to say this too early, and yes, still 4 teams will qualify. So you might do a Montpellier the last few years and just qualify by sort of just sleeping through, but it could really push them to the brink of the edge of this competition. So that's why I think, like you said, Shaun, Saracens are quite motivated to win this game. It seems like they've gone all in on trying to get as many points as possible. And the Bulls probably have to win. And I think the message from the management staff is get this win and you don't have to travel to Lyon.
Yeah, very much so. And if push comes to shove, Jake White's focusing on the URC.
It looks like it.
Yeah, like if the Bulls go deep, the Bulls probably are the only side in South Africa that could go deep in both competitions just because of their squad setup and how everything's going. But I don't think any other side will be able to. I don't even think the Bulls could pull off a double, not with this squad, and the way with the travel and everything. So it'll be focused on the URC because your URC placing positions you into the Champions Cup, unless of course you win it. So that's a double-edged sword, but you could pull the plug very quickly. The Bulls definitely have the squad and the form to finish high enough to qualify for the Champions Cup next year, which is the only thing that really matters. Every now and then you'll have a year where you really cook, but the South African sides we've got a long way to go before we'll be competitive in both the URC and the Champions Cup in the same season.
Yeah, we'll see what happens then on Saturday. The Bulls facing Saracens on Saturday evening. Big game at Loftus, a game where you're going to see a lot of world-class players, a lot of players that have won pretty much everything around the world. And yeah, there'll be many clashes to look forward to as well. So Shaun, thanks for this little preview. You will upload this so people can have it before the game on the weekend as well. And yeah, let's look forward to some great Champions Cup rugby this week.
Oh, thanks, man.